Alright, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the All About Ability podcast. I'm getting good at doing that intro. Today, cards on the table, man. We've had guests every week this year, but there was just we got a couple planned in the next few weeks, but couldn't get one this week. And myself and Paul have been talking about some things for YouTube and how to expand the podcast, and two things that I like. One of the things that I really enjoy talking about is football, right? So we've kind of thought about the idea of me kind of reviewing some games and just talking about Celtic and Rangers and Scottish football overall. So not necessarily just a Celtic thing, but more a Scottish football kind of discussion, because I like talking about it. And sometimes a podcast, I do enjoy the podcast, and we're still going to do the interviews and stuff, but I quite like just shooting the shit about football and talking about it, and I think we're going to add that to the channel, and we're going to try out some vlogs as well for the last couple of games at Celtic this season and see how that goes. But yeah, we're going to give it a bash. So on the football then this weekend,
you can call me Producer Paul, by the way.
Producer.
So everybody calls me.
Yeah, I feel like I'm Darren might feel that you're cheating on him or something, mate. He says this.
That's alright. So many people asked me to do it, so it's fine. And full disclosure as well, I'm a Celtic fan, so are you. So I think any football content's going to be pretty Celtic heavy.
No, I mean fair dues, right?
Will we try and be impartial? Will we try and find the balance here, or will we just go with pure like Celtic daft?
Well, it's that is easier said than done, isn't it? To be impartial when you're fans of a certain team. I feel like when you watch so many people talking about this, when you just hear like nonsense, like I feel like I can make reasonable points about Rangers and give them credit for things without sounding like an absolute idiot. But with that said, I do have a season ticket at Celtic Park, and those are the games that we'll be vlogging. And then like Paul said, it's just Producer Paul talking about, Celtic is probably the go-to. I feel like we're both sensible enough and mature enough to have some sort of balance to this. So to start off, I guess Rangers are shitey.
Well, I think like to try and to be impartial about it. If this was a Celtic channel, purely Celtic, I'd be going, let's just talk about Celtic. But I thought they gave it a good go. Like this is my genuine opinion. Trying to be take a step back for being Celtic daft and say that their squad is absolutely nowhere near. Rangers squad is absolutely nowhere near Celtic squad. Don't care what any pundit, manager, player, Michael Beale's been quoted in saying we're 4 or 5 players. That's half a team. So you're half a team away from getting within touching distance. My opinion is that if you look at the starting 11s and the benches, they're nowhere near it. And this is actually a compliment. I thought they gave it a good fucking go on Saturday, because they tried to press high, they tried to be positive, they came out and they had a go. But I just think that top to bottom, Celtic are just far stronger. And when you're far stronger like that, as was proven at the weekend, one chance, one goal, and then we could have held it. But that's my opinion on the matter. Is that to give them their due, I felt like they came out, had a proper go. That was their whole season in this one game. But the reality is that they're hoping that we have a terrible game, because our squad and their squad are just so far away from each other. And that's just because of the recruitment that we've done over the last sort of 2 seasons has been absolutely spectacular.
No, mate, exactly. I think I don't really know anything else that Rangers could have done than what they did. They pressed us right for the first. I think they had a shot in the first 30 seconds or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And there was definitely a period of the game where they were right on top. But it seems as if the development of this, everyone talks about the way the football Celtic play, right, which has obviously been really good to watch, but there seems to be that other side of the game that Andrew's developed through this team, through from now to the last semi-final Scottish Cup, is that kind of just digging it out and getting the result. Like, of course they want to play this brand of football, but you often see a lot of managers that are like, no, I'd rather lose this way than try to change it to dig in. Whereas Andy's got this good combination of both, where it's like, I want to play this football, but if we don't change this up to now, we're going to not win the football match. So let's just kind of hit the ball long if you need to, get it out there. I think that's kind of a side, because people forget, mate. See that season that the Rangers won the league in COVID ball, as they call it, right? That our Celtic's defence was so bad. I mean, it was unbelievable how bad the defence was that season, right? Mm-hmm. So I still have like flashbacks, nightmares about how bad that defending was, and because we were conceding all the time, and I think people forget how bad all our back four was. So for it to be as strong as it is now, for us to come out of that game and go, best players in the park for us were the two centre halves and Joe Hart. For me, in terms of,
for you? Was that for you the best sort of?
I mean, I felt as if that was the difference in the game, because I mean, I thought Hart came out. He got all the crosses away really well during that spell that they were right on top of us. He was coming out getting the ball away, and then Starfelt, as much as CCV gets a lot of credit, Starfelt was a rock, mate. He was absolutely, so I just couldn't. It didn't really look as if, I know they had that one really good chance with Sakala where they should put that away really, but other than that, we just didn't look under any real threat in terms of, I wasn't concerned about them getting in behind us at any point. So,
well, I don't think that they really had the pace to get in behind us. Like Alfredo Morelos hasn't got that playing on the shoulder. Like their full tactic, right? Like they're, as much as like when we were on the ball, I thought Rangers were actually really good. So they pressed. But see, when they got on the ball, it was just Tavernier. It was just diagonals out wide and then a ball into the box. That was their full game. And it was so one-dimensional that I felt like outside, I think that the Sakara chance, and I think they also, with one that we cleared off the line, I think that came for a set piece.
Aye.
They're in that sort of mode that kind of reminds me of like Tommy Burns' Celtic against Walter Smith's Rangers in the late 90s, where we're hoping for a set piece, right? So if we think about that, we constantly get beat or drew with them, right? We beat them, I think, once in 2 or 3 seasons at Celtic Park in the Scottish Cup semi-final, where Di Canio scored a penalty and Malky Mackay scored a header for a corner. So they're kind of like in that mode. They're hoping for a mistake or a set piece to score. Whereas, for instance, when Sakala missed that chance, I genuinely feel like Postecoglou's Celtic, if they had scored that, could have went through the gears and we would have scored again. I'm not saying that we deliberately didn't score, but I think that we could have scored again, if you know what I mean. Like it's that, and I think that not only is the opinion of a lot of the fans, I think that that's also the opinion of the team, and that's the mentality of a winning team. No matter what they do, we'll do something else. So, I mean, you're saying, I mean, Cameron Carter-Vickers get man of the match. I can't believe that guy's playing with an injury. That he's going to need to go and get surgery on his knee. I mean, that is mind-blowing, mate. Like, to think that guy is, team of the season, man of the match, team of the week, everybody giving him, like, what a game he had. And the guy's playing with an injury. But I genuinely thought that Matt O'Reilly had a fantastic game on Sunday. Although any time he got the ball just stuck to his feet. He was involved in the build-up to the goal. And I think that there's been a lot of Celtic fans, myself included, who've been really critical of Matt O'Reilly since the Champions League run where he played in defensive midfield at the absence of Callum McGregor. I thought he was excellent on Sunday, just to give him like a shout out. But let's talk about like because not a lot really happened. Like there wasn't a lot of like action. First of all, let's talk about the Celtic goal. Like, so Matt O'Reilly gets fouled. the referee doesn't give a foul, he gets play on. But I mean, if I'm a Rangers fan, I am absolutely spewing at what happened. They literally stood still. Like, Raskin pointed. So, like, Raskin pointed at the ball, like, get the ball, but he's also close to the ball. It's like, and the only player that's active is Maeda, and he just nips in, crosses it in, and Jota's I mean, I don't think you're going to miss that, really. It's a point blank header. But if I'm a Rangers fan, mate, I am absolutely spewing at that. Like, how can you go into, as much as we're saying earlier on, like, they've done well, like, how can you go into the game, your full season, this is your season? Now, the amount of times, I know that you're a lot younger than me, the amount of times that we went into games like that, where it's like, this is our season, and just didn't play, like, didn't really turn up. It's infuriating. So I think Rangers fans out there have got to be spewing that they just fell asleep.
I mean, it's exactly because you want it to be, if you're a Rangers fan, you want it to be like a moment of quality, something that Celtic did something special, but it's almost as if that goal sort of epitomises everything that's the biggest difference between the two teams. You know, and there was a lot of people that were going to slide off that we never stop stuff, and it is a bit cliche and cheesy and stuff like that, right? But at the end of the day, that is what the goal summarises. We're always on it. We're always looking to get that bit of an advantage. Even the because people talk about that foul on O'Reilly and he plays on and we score for that. But right before, like 2 seconds before that, it started with a quick free kick. If you watch it,
aye,
we get a free kick. We take it right away. But as soon as we get the free kick, O'Reilly pulls himself to the side in the first place to get it.
He's looking for the ball. Aye, I think it's McGregor that puts the ball down and plays it out. But you see O'Reilly peel and be like, aye, give me the ball.
So right away, they've not marked O'Reilly there. Like, he's already thinking ahead of them. And then the same thing happens. So it's not just that, it's those two moments and sequences, but big games come into big moments. And it's like, to switch, like you say, to switch off like that. Because it's not just one of them. You've got like 3 or 4 of them that could go get that, and then Tavernier just like not watching Jota at the back post. Because I mean, if you're honestly, like, I don't know how they still why they still try and talk up this like Tavernier is one of their better players, right? But it must be so infuriating the amount of times that he gets caught out at the back post, like, and both are fullbacks.
Yeah, I mean, in all the years that the guy was Celtic captain, and in the two with Scott Brown and the 2 years that we've had with Callum McGregor, if your captain's caught sleeping, like, I don't really recall to mind any time Scott Brown was ever caught sleeping. He's just constantly active. Callum McGregor, I think, is even better at that, even better at just being aware, that sort of game awareness. If you look at what Callum McGregor did, right, now I'm thinking about this for previous Celtic teams under Lennon and maybe no under Rodgers, but just previous sort of incarnations of Celtic squads where it would take us an age to take a throw in. It would take us an age to get the ball down and take a free kick. We were so slow at getting set pieces gone, and that's one of the big things that Ange's definitely done, is that we're rapid. But for their captain to get caught back post, I think he's a good player. Hate to say it, you know, he's Rangers captain. He is a good player, but defensively, he's just no that. You know, I don't know why they've not tried to move him forward, or why they don't play. You know, no Rangers managers tried to play a back five to let, like, I mean, under Gerrard, for instance, I think that that gap that we're talking about, I don't think that Rangers squad that won the league in 2020, I mean, if you actually look at it on paper, I was very happy with the Celtic squad that went into that season. I thought we did really well with our business. I thought that we signed the right players that we needed in the right places. And I think if you were to put it on paper, you'd be like, I'm really happy with that team. But for all that, you know, Steven Gerrard, he had them fit. That's the first thing that I noticed. Like, I think about 25 minutes into that game on Sunday, I was like, they are blown out their arse. Like, they're chasing us. Like, every team that comes up against this Celtic squad is in for a fitness test, I think. Like, they're going to need to run. And I think Gerrard had them really well drilled at what he wanted them to do. They weren't fantastic, but they were fucking night and day in comparison to what they're like now. And a lot of that squad were there. So I think under Van Bronckhorst, it looks like they've took a sort of, I don't know if they've took their focus off the fitness or what they've done, but that Rangers team that won, Barisic and Tavernier were so high up the park that it would pin back. Like if they're coming up against, I mean, who would they be coming up against? Greg Taylor and Laxalt or whatever. They two would pin the opposition fullbacks back so that the team can't come out. And now I don't know where that's went. You know what I mean? And it's hard to, other than like I said, it's just a difference in style and a difference in philosophy. But Beale was the coach. I mean, they don't look as fit, or Celtic are just far fitter.
I feel like Gerrard's style suited the players that they had, like Dati, in terms of what he was trying to do. He was making use of the fact that they've got two, fullbacks to compress like that. And then, like you say, that you're watching games and you could just tell. I mean, look at the. I mean, I know that Gio was the manager by this point, but he'd obviously taken over that season. And when they beat us in the semi-final last season, you could tell how fit they were because they just played extra time for Europa League in the midweek, and then went extra time against us and won the game.
Aye,
because I remember we were all like that. Well, because they went extra time in Europe, we should be able to beat them in terms of they'll be tired and that. And you could see that, but that they had. We didn't have anywhere near as much depth at the time. I don't think, because when you get Welsh coming on the right back, you're kind of in for some trouble. But they obviously had that edge fitness wise, and it was like it felt as though they were just really organised and really committed. Whereas, I mean, you look at like Gerrard had guys like Morelos and Kent really fighting for Rangers, fighting to give everything they had to win these games and be consistent and just doing the simple things right all the time. I think, but you look now, it's like the two of them starting Sunday and they're both out of contract, which I think is, by the way, is really bizarre. I can't remember a time where you had two, so-called star men for them in the front line that have been, running down the contract all season. And now it's got to this point. I don't remember that ever happening. I find that quite strange. How, because people keep talking, how like people were saying need 4 or 5 in. They've got fucking like 8 or 9 players at a contract at the end of the season, and there hasn't been that much made of that, which is kind of strange. I feel like I've never really seen that before. But to go back to the actual like style of play, I think that they did look. And the whole basis of Beale getting appointed was because of being in that Gerrard regime. So you'd imagine that maybe he just needs more time to get that fitness up. And I do think that if you're a Rangers fan, I think the sort of hope that you have for me would be the fact that Celtic were in a mess. We were in a colossal mess, and so many players left after that 2020 season, and Brown. I mean, guys like Scott Brown leaving, and all of our midfield basically, Edwards and all that. Everybody was leaving all throughout the team, and I think we had absolutely no right to win the title last season. I don't think, like, on paper you'd go like, I think obviously Celtic fans and Rangers fans always want to win the league, but on paper I didn't think we had any chance of winning the league at the start of the season last season. And so the way that it just depends on how good Beale actually is, because I think you can use that comparison, right? But see, when you do that, you need to also remember the fact that it's so unbelievably rare how spot on Ange got all of that right at the right time.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see that very often where guys go out and buy 3, 4, 5 players and they all hit the ground running. I don't remember any other time in our history that's happened, really. So, we got, to an extent, we did get lucky to get Ange in the first place. Does Beale have that same... the guy's a very new manager. This is what's kind of strange to me about the whole situation.
Yeah, and I think he shows it. I think he shows it in the way that he talks. Like, if you remember, if you think about the way that when Ange came in, the way that he spoke, you know, like I don't remember once him ever blaming Lennon or talking about Lennon's Celtic team or talking about how, you know, blah, blah, blah. Sure, he mentioned, you know, the big turnaround in squad, but I think in his post-match, Beale's saying, you know, the problems started here right after we beat PSV. So ultimately what he's saying there is that these aren't my problems. I've inherited these problems. And that is kind of true, but it's also like if you're hired to do a job and you take that job, you know the problems that are sitting there. So then he just be like, these are like, he's went from there's no gap to the gap's not that big to I need 4 or 5 players to like, oh, the problems are the previous managers basically. And I think it shows a real massive lack of leadership. And it shows how actually, like you're saying, how naive he is as a new manager. There needs to be a certain amount of backing your team and backing your squad, but I think there also needs to be some sort of realism in there because it's embarrassing. You know, he's got like Todd Cartwell out there again at, you know, we didn't get beat. We, you know, like it's all like chatter and noise and no actual substance. What do you think about? What did you think? I mean, what did you think about Hatate's performance? I felt that, and I've always hated people getting thrown, like the way that Moy got thrown back in. I've always kind of no liked that. If it's done out of necessity, like we did with Kyogo and Starfelt when we played against Hearts, where it's literally like we don't have anybody else to play, so you're going to need to play. I don't have a problem with that, but when you've got other options, I'm not a big fan of throwing somebody in after 3-4 weeks or whatever he's been injured. And I felt like Hatate had a really quiet game on Sunday.
Yeah, I thought there was a certain point in the game where he looked like he was gassed out. And I think that goes back to see the fact that Celtic play with such high intensity. Even having McGregor talk about it after the game, he was like, every single day, everybody's putting 100% into these training sessions. And you can tell that on the pitch. They play with such a high intensity. So I think when how long did that even out? He was out for like 2 or 3 weeks.
I think he hasn't played in nearly a month, like almost a month.
So I do think that it was a risk, and there was a certain point in the game you're thinking this guy hasn't really got on the ball. He seems a bit slower. It was something I noticed throughout the game that he just didn't quite seem at it the same way that he normally is, and. Not that he was bad at it like that, but I just think he set such a high standard for himself. And Ange's done that a few times in these games. He brought on, I mean, I know that, I remember when he brought on Juranovic for Taylor for a left back.
Yeah.
That changed the game at Ibrox. And he came out and said he got that wrong, in fairness to him. But there's been times where he's threw guys in and you're like, oh, I don't know if that was, necessary, but he does tend to do it. I mean, it has also worked well. I mean, he threw Alistair Johnston in at Ibrox when we had Juranovic and Ralston available, I think, and he threw Johnston in, and he's been excellent from that day.
Yeah.
So there's hit and miss, but I think when it comes to the midfield, when you've got a guy like David Turnbull for the fit that's been training for weeks on the bench, I kind of feel like why not start somebody like him and maybe bring on Hatate with half an hour to go. I know people will say, "Oh, Keaton, come on, Turnbull's nowhere near Hatate, right?" But I don't think he's as far away as people think.
I would agree with you on both of that. Like, one, David Turnbull's not Hatate, or Aaron Moy for that. Like, I think both of the players are far superior to David Turnbull on form, because David Turnbull's a fucking great. I think David Turnbull's a great football player when he's on his day. I think that the philosophy might have been there that I think Turnbull slows it down a lot, and I think Moy also can slow down the passage of play, and I think Matt O'Reilly can also, like, I'm not saying that these guys do this constantly, it's not a complaint, I think it's just the pace at which they play the game, and I think that they're all three of them have got that more sort of cultured footballer about them, where they're wanting time and space on the ball to, like, you know, turn and see the way that McGregor can take the ball in And as I'm saying this, I'm like, I've seen Moy, Turnbull and O'Reilly do this, but the way that McGregor can quickly turn and make a pass, and it's like really, and Hatate can do the same. It's almost like they know where they're putting the ball before the ball even comes to them. I don't think that, especially like Turnbull, but even like Matt O'Reilly's really way that. So similar to, I'm not a big fan of seeing Moy and O'Reilly play in the same midfield. I don't think I would like to see like Turnbull and O'Reilly play, and I think that's why the thinking behind throwing Hatate in. But like you, I think he was really tired. Like, he didn't have a bad game by any stretch of the
He
imagination.
could have came off earlier. He probably could have came off earlier.
And I think also it was worth the risk simply because of how good Rio Hatate is. I thought Dyson Maida just did what Dyson Maida does, didn't he? He just ran and ran.
Do you think there's like an element of with Hatate? Do you think there's a way, like, kind of part of it where I'm just going, players know how good Hatate is, and it's like if you're a Rangers player, you kind of are aware of the fact that this guy has done some damage to you over the last few games over the course of the last couple of years, and I feel like there could have been an element of when they see that midfield of Hatate, O'Reilly, McGregor, that the Rangers team go, we've been here before against them and not done too well. That could, I think, there's because everybody knows, including the players, how good Hatate is. So I think that if I'm a Rangers player, I'm hoping to not see him in the lineup. Do you know what I mean? And maybe I'm sure that's not the whole part of it, but he is that kind of level where you go, he can produce that moment of. The difference between him and the other midfielders we've got is he can always just produce that moment of class where you go, wow, didn't see that coming? And I think that's why I threw him in. And ultimately, it was a right call because Celtic won the game, which is all that really matters in these things. But Iwata, there was a lot of shouts for Iwata play, but I never thought.
Forgot about Iwata. That's how good our midfield is.
Well, that's it. I mean, and that goes to show you the depth as well. But I think for me, he was never going to start because McGregor was always going to be the holding midfielder. So I don't think that was ever really going to be an option that Andrew considered. But it shows you how good our midfield is and our team is.
This is what I'm talking about. Excuse me, as a choke. About the difference in the squads.
Aye.
I think we could quite easily win a Glasgow derby with Iwata, Moy, and Turnbull. And then would I be excited? I'd be like, oof, but would I be surprised if we won? No. I think outside of maybe the Glasgow derby, I think that midfield would beat any other midfield in the SPFL. If you were to take all three are Rangers starting three midfielders in the centre of the park away and put their subs on, I don't think that's the same. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that they will. I think they would struggle. And I was one of the ones. When I seen the lineup, I was like, that's worth the risk. But I wouldn't have minded seeing Iwata, O'Reilly, and McGregor. And I think that just shows you the strength and depth that we've got, really and truly. And every other part of the park other than striker, for me. When I thought the subs were made at a good time, this is another thing that I really love about Ange, is that I think unless there's a curveball, such as we go goal down or we get an injury, I think he already knows roughly when he's going to be making these changes, and I think he knows who he's going to be making the changes based on things like knowing his players, knowing his squad, and knowing the injuries. But I felt like when he made the changes on Sunday, I thought we looked rock solid. It's just, I think he made 3 changes
in the one goal, yeah.
And for it no really impact, you know what I mean, and no really to change the dynamic, it's incredible, really.
With the last half hour, I think that was when we made the 3 subs. I don't remember Rangers having any clear cut, chances to equalise, and that's a credit to the. I mean, the subs kind of epitomise the difference between the two teams as well, because you know, there's nobody that comes on for Rangers. They are thinking, oh, they're going to be the difference maker here. Whereas, like, Haksabanovic has got a lot of quality, you know what I mean? And because you're thinking, if I'm Rangers, I'm thinking, well, Jota's going off, that's great. And then you see a guy like Haksabanovic, you go, what chance have we got here, man? You know, the options that we have and how it doesn't actually change the team that much, as I think ultimately is what sees us through. I mean, if you look at this one compared to last season, right, we didn't have the subs at that point. So when they got to when we went 1-0 up and they equalised, we didn't have that second gear because everyone was knackered and you're bringing on Stephen Welsh at right back and we didn't have the options to come on and change the game. Whereas now we had the options to come on and just tee out. And like you say, you kind of feel as if Rangers had equalised, that we could have stepped up to another gear.
Aye. I mean, when Alistair Johnson got injured and Anthony Ralston came on, nothing changed.
Exactly.
It's just, I mean, it's almost like two players that could start in almost every position of the park, you know. It's which is exciting as a Celtic fan, you know, it really is. I felt their midfield three didn't do enough.
No.
They didn't do enough, but they tried to bypass them. Like I said, there was more diagonals going out to Barisic and Tavernier than what there was like sort of like trying to play through Celtic. And like I said at the start, mate, I just felt like they were very one-dimensional. Whereas like when Haksabanovic comes on, he's different. He's a completely different player. And that's been, I mean, in the cup final, he went clean through on them twice, should have scored. And I felt like he probably should have scored on Sunday as well. But would you be gutted at seeing Haksabanovic in a starting 11? No. Exactly. It's just amazing. And I thought it was hilarious that Alistair Johnson was jumping about with the crutches flying about at full time. That's
like me when we scored at Celtic Park. I just jump out the chair and everyone was like, what's he doing? He's a fraud.
But Sunday was, it felt, I hate to say this, it kind of felt routine, didn't it? You know, Celtic won again.
I mean, and that's the thing about this though, is from a Celtic fan perspective, like being in that place where it does feel routine, it's something I'll never take for granted again, man, after that COVID season, because you do, I think we all kind of got in that way of being like, this is just the way it is, like they've got no chance. And then when that happened that season, it just kind of it reminded me of why these things matter for me. You know, it reminds you that every, and see, for as good as Bale has done, ultimately all that really matters in these games is who's through to the next round. Do you know what I mean? And that I think that's what, I mean, because the thing about what Bill's saying, just to go back to what you were saying about him talking about like mentioning previous managers and the season before he was there, I've never done that, and you could argue that he would have been very entitled to do so at that time because he came in, man. We had no people really do seem to forget that the first half of last season we had nobody. Man,
it was well within his right. We sat in this very studio watching the Celtic Dundee United at home, and I mean, I think we were drawn. We drawn one each or drawn nothing each. We beat them 1-0. We scored in the last minute, and I remember saying to you, like, look, I don't think we won anything this season, and that wasn't pessimism. I feel like that was a sort of realistic take on what was going on at the time, and again, like the sort of the 180 that happened, way results like that, Ross County, momentum. Moments like the pure cliches about momentum and moments change games and moments change seasons. I just feel like when they moments have came for Rangers, and they do come because they're not a bad football team, when they moments come, they bottle it, and that's the difference. That's the big difference. And I think that moment came on Sunday, and it was Sakara, and mate, he missed an open goal, and I think that was it. That was their season. You know what I mean? And it was like, here's your chance to save your season, score an equaliser, let's see what happens. You know, we don't know. As much as I was saying earlier, I believe that Celtic would have fucking went through the gears again and we would have probably scored again. that's a huge moment, and when they get the moments for that team, just don't take them. You know.
You've got to be concerned a wee bit because when Bill first came in, I remember they won a game at Pittodrie 3-2, and they were 2-1 down in the 5 minutes of stoppage time, and they scored twice in 5 minutes, like after the 90 to win 3-2, and I remember that happening and being concerned because I was going, that's proper. That's what winning teams do. They come back and get the result, and it seems as though that sort of initial burst of fight, because when he came in, they weren't playing amazingly, but they definitely dug out results for quite a consistent period of time. And I think they're kind of a. I mean, I agree with everything you said there, but they're sort of a victim of. It's not good enough unless it's ahead of Celtic, really. Do you know what I mean? But it's difficult because, see, as much as we wanted Celtic to win the title last season, if I was to be realistic about it, if we hadn't won it, I'd have been like, well, I didn't think we were going to, really. Whereas I don't know, I feel like Rangers fans, a lot of Rangers fans, seem to have this idea that they can just, that it doesn't matter really how, because what I'm trying to say basically is Bill went on this run where they won like a bunch of games in a row in the league, right? And the only thing that didn't happen for him during that time is that Celtic didn't drop any points. He didn't do anything wrong. We just didn't lose or draw or anything. We gave them nothing back into it. Like if when Ange went in the run last season, if Gio's Rangers had not drawn against Aberdeen and dropped his points and all that and kept on winning, then it wouldn't have mattered what Ange done. Do you know what I mean? So I think that it's like, and I just feel as if they need to take a step back and go, right, Celtic are now, really well organised, really far ahead of us. And that experienced guy for us that came in, he'd already been coaching and managing for, decades. I feel like that, for me, would be a big concern if you're a Rangers fan, is does this guy, Bill, have the experience and the know-how to go out and create a full squad, essentially?
Uh-huh.
And then is he going to go, because it looks to me as if they're going towards the English Championship market.
Yeah, which was a mistake that I think that both Celtic and Rangers have made early years, is like going into the English lower leagues looking for. I mean, we've found a couple. Dembele, Matt O'Reilly's another one, but when Ange went to Japan and went to the Middle East, I was like, thank God we're not going and trawling through the English Championship to find, you know what I mean? And like, which I think we would have done under Eddie Howe. We would have went to the English lower leagues. But to what you're saying there, he did have them moving. Almost, it felt like Van Bronckhorst had lost the momentum, had lost that winning mentality. And when Beale came in, like you're saying, they had a few weeks, couple of months, but they've just not been able to put a glove on Celtic. And like you said, when it's Celtic or Rangers, that's what really matters. And that's why I was making that comparison to sort of Tommy Burns' Celtic team, because even though we went, I mean, you were interviewing Simon Donnelly, we went a full season, I think we only get beat once. Guess who beat us? Like that type of stuff. It's like they would come to Parkhead and beat us 1-0 all the time. And you're like, how are we, undefeated in this league campaign, still second to that Rangers team? And it's because we just couldn't put a glove on them. And I think Beale's, that game at Ibrox where they went 2-1 up, we get that injury, changed the momentum of the game, unbalanced our team. That was another moment that we drew. We didn't, and that's the thing. When this seems to be the sort of pattern. Them at their best and us not at our best, and we're still winning or drawing. So it feels probably feels like, what do we need to do here? And just zaps the morale and the energy out of them, which I'm loving, really. But we spoke a lot about them in Sunday, but we get through Inverness Califaso in the final, and brilliant, love it.
There's nothing much to really complain about from a Celtic point of view. I mean, like you said, that Kyogo goal at Ibrox was a huge moment in the season. I feel like, because if they won that game 2-1, you never know what happens for there really, in terms of just some momentum in football is such a huge thing, and it's that kind of way where you go, even when you're not quite at it, you have that faith that Celtic are just going to see this through, because they're so. It's more than just the quality in the ball; it's the way that all the players are all approaching the game with this like deep desire. I think the thing that, here's an interesting comparison though, right? I was thinking about Barry Robson at Aberdeen, right? Came in and took over a team that had just get beat 6-1, 6-0 against Hibs Easter Road, and they'd get beat 5-0 by Hearts a couple of weeks before that, and they get knocked out by the cup by Darvel, right? So this Aberdeen team, for all intents and purposes, were right on its knees big time, and he's came in, not mentioned anything about anything previously, and just totally transformed that team completely. And then beating Rangers as well, you know. So I kind of you feel as if, you know, those managers that kind of get something about them, just make it happen. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like Barry Robson at Aberdeen is kind of what the fact he was able to take a team that would just get hammered quite a few times, and they look in a really good position to finish third in the league. So I don't know if that's. I know Celtic Rangers is very different to Aberdeen, but it just goes to show you that it doesn't really matter what's went on before. You need to come in with your own ideas and be ready to go. Whereas it seems like every interview that he's doing, he's kind of just saying, well, this isn't really my fault. Right? But the problem with that, right, is that you're buying yourself no excuses for next season. You get a full summer here now. If you don't, Beale really needs to hit the ground running next season, in terms of, if they draw or lose one of the first few league games next season, he's going to be in big trouble. So there's been a lot of talk. I've kind of seen Rangers fans talk about this on Twitter, which I thought was interesting, about saying maybe we're a bit too quick to get rid of Gio and all that. And I do kind of wonder, you know, guy takes you out of European final with next to nothing in terms of investment. And I know obviously they lost the lead to Celtic, but I think that was made worse by the fact that when he came in they had that 6-point lead, right? But I mean, if you were going to do this whole kind of big transforming of the team, wouldn't you rather have a guy that's got a bit more experience than a guy that's just basically in his first proper job as a manager? I mean, if you don't count the fact that he had a few games at QPR. So I don't know if that's... I don't know how long the guy lasts for, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do during the summer and who comes in, because guys like Morelos and that, they'll be away.
Yep.
So that's going to be like a whole... They've had that same group of players for like far too long, it feels like, as well. Morelos and Kent, and even guys like Golson and Taverner, I feel like they've just been there forever, and you're like, you can't expect to... I mean, even guys like Arfield and Davis and all that, you're looking at guys... A top team really shouldn't have 3 or 4 players that are like 36, 37, 38. Really? You don't get that very often, I don't think.
I know. Aye. It feels like they were like a patchwork quilt to win a league.
Aye.
And then they won the league and they didn't really do much else.
Aye.
Like they just fell back. I think to be fair, I think they may have tried, because, you know, like they were willing to let Goldson go, and like, but they just couldn't. I don't think they replaced them. So I don't know, man. Like, I'm with you, man. I think if things keep going the way that they're going, I don't see the guy in the job at this time. You know, like Christmas next season. Don't see him lasting long. But
no, it's hard to see it, man. But like, I'm intrigued to see what they do when they go about it. Just last thing on the game that I thought was really interesting is see their slabs. Like, see, like when they brought off Morelos and that. I know that Morelos didn't have a good game and didn't really do it, but you're losing 1-0, do you know, and you need to score, and you've got one striker on the part and you take him off. I don't know if that's like, for me, I was kind of like, I know that Morelos hadn't done it really, but I seen that sub and I was like, that's quite a good sub for us. I'm glad that, because he's the guy that you think might pop up at the back post or something and do something. But as soon as you take him off, I'm just going, I don't see anywhere where they score here. So that, his subs seem to actually not be, but even in the Aberdeen game, playing on our field with 10 minutes to go, 2-0 down, you're like, what do you think is going to happen here? It's like,
But again, that's coming back to his experience as a manager or inexperience. And aye, man. I mean, I'm more than happy for it to be like that. You know what I mean? How do you feel about the post? So like we've got 5 games left, 3 points to win. I think even if we draw against Hearts, I don't know if that's true.
Well, 1 win away. If they don't win, we'd win as well. So if they don't win,
right, okay.
But I think if we beat Hearts, we won the league.
It's guaranteed. I think we'll beat Hearts. Like, I think we'll go out, we'll be ready. This team seems to be, it's no like, I mean, I was talking to somebody on Sunday and saying, remember under Stratton, where we would win leagues and then we would be drawn for like 6 weeks in a row and then we'd eventually go over the line. I don't see that being the case. I think we win against Hearts and wrap up this league. What would you like to see happen after the league's sewn up?
That's a good question, because I was just thinking there, like, I'd really like to see more of Rocco Vata.
Oh, right, aye. Mm-hmm.
I'd quite like to see him get a run in the team. We've won the league. Let's see what this guy can do. Let's see if he's going to be up to the level of being a part of this first team or not. And decide, you can use these last few games to sort of decide if he's going to go out on loan or stay with us.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like a lot of the time we get these young guys that just sort of, you don't really know, if they're going to do it or not.
Yeah.
And so I'd quite like to see if he's going to be able to have that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that will happen, but
I would like to see a goalkeeper. I'd like to see what goalkeeping options we've got. Like, we've got Seagrass, and I think we've got a guy in the development squad that's really highly thought of. I'd like to see what's going on there. I'd also, it looks like, is it Tamaka?
Yeah, the centre half.
He's definitely going to get game time because Cameron Kartovic is away for like a injury operation. We're going to see him. I'm excited by that. I'd like to see Mary Awata, and I would like to see They would be the ones, and Vata. I didn't even think about Vata, but I would like to see. So that would be Vata, Tamaka, Awata, and maybe changing it up at goalkeeper. I would quite like to see that in the last sort of few games of the season, barring Trophy Day, where he's going to put his team into.
I mean, this is the thing about for Celtic as well, which is puts us in a really good position, is the fact that because we get the league sold up and we've got these like 4 or 5 games before then, and then we've not even get qualified, we're right in the group stage again. So Andrew's got all this time in terms of to assess the areas that you just spoke about, keeper, centre half. What are we going to strengthen them? Are we not? What we're doing, in terms of what the plan is in the window and for next season and stuff like that. He's got all this time to think through it, and you don't feel as if he's the kind of guy that like leaves things unturned. That way, where every day he's probably thinking, what can I do to take this to the next level? And I just think giving him that sort of breathing space to have that time to think it all through and pick the right options is a dangerous prospect for the rest of the league in terms of where Celtic can be. But also, I feel as though there's a little bit of pressure on Ange for Europe next season in terms of, I think he really needs to not finish bottom of the Champions League group, whatever group it is that we get. Not finishing bottom of that would be the first sort of objective. And then so I think he's going to have a summer where he needs to look at the squad and go, where we've got a really, really, really good squad, but where can we get somebody in that's better than one of the first 11? And to take us into that Champions League group stage and not get, I think what we've seen from last season is that we're going to need probably another striker in terms of, I think Kyogo's been so important, I think O is decent, but whether or not I'd be confident in him completely filling Kugo's boots for a run of games is a totally different question.
Whereas with Giakoumakis, you had that confidence. I think Giakoumakis sticks that. Was it who was it? Motherwell. I was going to say St Mirren, but that's the other team that we've slipped up against this season. That chance that he had against Motherwell, I think Giakoumakis sticks that away, and that's no like strikers need games, right? If you look at, I'll stop calling him Giakoumakis, but if you look at him, even he struggled until he got a proper run in the team due to Kyogo's injury. That's why I'm saying I'd like to start a run of games, 3 or 4 games in the bounce. Let's see what this guy's about. They're dead rubbers anyway. So I would like to see that and see where we truly are at centre, at striker. But I think to your point on the pressure of Europe, don't get it wrong. Like if he's, if we come out of the other side at Christmas next year, bought me a Champions League group stage, and we're in a League Cup final, we've won a League Cup, and we're top of the league, we'll obviously be grumbling, but there's not going to be any pressure. I think the really good thing is that the person who's going to be putting the most pressure on Ange to get results in Europe next year is Ange. And that's the way it should be, because I think like guys like Ronnie Dyler, Neil Lennon, the pressure was coming onto them to get results, whereas I think it's Ange that will be like, no, I want to prove myself in Europe. And based on that grit that you're talking about, that different, and I think even a lot of the commentary in the media is that Celtic have got something else here. That's not just, quick passages of play, nice football. Like, if we need to dig in and grind a result out, we seem to have been able to unlock that. That's obviously happened in training. That's obviously came from Ange and the coaching staff. So I think we'll do all right next year. I think we'll do really well, actually. If we manage to keep everybody together, that starting 11 and add to it, I don't see us. I think we'll do all right, man.
I mean, that is such a good point you made there, and that's kind of what I mean in the sense of the pressure, because I'm not putting any pressure on Ange. I don't think any Celtic fan. I think we're all just grateful for what he's done and the way that he's done it. Guy coming in for Japan with no background stuff and just winning the league like that, like doing basically what Rangers have wanted for the past decade or so, just coming in, transforming a squad and winning the league. And if you're honestly, like, at the end of that season with Gerard won the league, they must have been thinking, we are miles ahead of this mob, man. So I can't believe, some teams that I honestly still can't believe what this guy has actually done. But when we're talking about pressure, that's what I mean, mate, is he's going to be exactly, like, the way that he talks about it, he's desperate for it to be a success. And the pressure I sort of feel is I feel like he really wants to challenge himself. So I want us to do well in that, so that he feels appeased in terms of being at Celtic, I guess, is the thing. Because if he has a full summer, we sign let's say we sign 2 or 3 quality players or whatever. Not that I necessarily think we need it, but let's just say that we splurge a wee bit and we go all in for the Champions League and we're fully prepared on paper, and then we finish bottom of the group. I'm not going to put pressure on Ange, but I wonder if Ange then starts thinking, do I need to go somewhere else?
To compete in Europe and to take his career to that next level.
That's the thing that kind of scares me about it. And I think that's, the pressure isn't necessarily that I'm saying Ange needs to win the Champions League because otherwise we wouldn't have sacked. It's more so Ange needs to win in the Champions League so that he can stay and keep winning his league titles and trophies and Scottish Cups and that. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, and I really hope that if there's anything the Celtic board need to do this end of the season, to just make sure that whatever his contract in it's airtight. Give him some money, man. Keep him here as much as you can, because he is the guy. You've seen that Rodgers, the whole Rodgers and Lennon thing was the exact example as to why that is so important. You know what I mean? That this guy leaves, then we are 1 or 2 bad transfer windows away from being level with him again, basically.
Yep.
So, and that's, I think that's got to be the hope that Rangers fans take out of this, is they get a whole rebuild Who knows? Beale might get it right. Who knows? Halfway through next season, he may get Ange might get an offer that he wants to take, and then all of a sudden we're like sitting here going, "Oh my god, what's going to happen here?" Then
I genuinely don't see that happening with a guy like Ange.
I don't
think
either, but
I think
you never know.
I think I said at the end of last season amongst friends, I reckon we'll get 5 years. I think I said that to you. I think we'll get 4 or 5 seasons out of Ange. Doesn't seem like the type of guy that's going to get an offer for a Leicester or a. I mean, you never know, right? You never ever know. But I just don't see it. I don't see a top half English Premier League team coming in, and I don't see that happening, and I don't see them going down to fight relegation. So I hope I suppose is that optimism.
Yeah, I mean that is true, and also I feel like Ange has this kind of loyalty to guys that he's brought over from the other side of the world, to Japan and different places like that. I just feel like it's a case of like he's basically got to move their life over here, and I've heard him talking about it before. It's like these guys are really committed to me, and I'm committed to the club, and you can tell that there's more to him in football than just purely the money and the numbers.
I think the mistake that Celtic have done and with previous managers, and I think they did this with Rodgers as well, is that they haven't gave them enough control. Whereas I think with Ange, they had no option but to just go, please rescue something, please do something here, and he's done it. So I genuinely think the guy's got complete control.
Yeah,
and I think when you've got complete control of a club the size of Celtic, I don't see you getting itchy feet. But
he's got the best. He's got the best relationship with the board that I think any manager has had in my whole lifetime, basically.
Yeah,
pretty much, which is amazing. And it's like when you do that though, you can only do that when you know the guy can handle it, and the guy can handle it. You know? So that's what makes it all the better. So, what do we think then? Do we think the treble on? Is the treble?
Well,
happening?
the treble's on. I mean, there is absolutely.
Inverness,
no
Cali Thistle are giving me the fear, but right, I'm going to tell you this right now. There's something about that team that I just have so many bad memories about us playing Inverness. So many of them.
Well, I think what we could do is because we're going to be trying another wee bit of more football content, and we're going to be doing vlogs. Is we could do a half-hour preview of the Scottish Cup final, maybe to go out that week. What we think, because I'm with you. I've got the Super Cali go ballistic headlines. You know, like the amount of times that team have been our bogey team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we went up there needing a win under Lennon to beat Walter Smith's Rangers to stop them doing 3 in a row. Bottled it. They've beat us at Parkhead, like the Scottish Cup semi-final at Hampden, where it was the referees, the handball, like Lee Griffiths, but they've been a bogey team, so I'm the same, man. So I think we should do a preview.
I was choking for Poglock to win that semi-final win. But no, like that's the thing, is we're going to be bringing more football content to the channel, just because we've been talking about like ways of. I mean, obviously, a lot of the big thing for me over the past sort of couple of years has been being consistent with it all, and this year it's probably the most consistent that I've ever been with the podcast. Like we've had a podcast out every Tuesday this year so far, which is good to be saying come May, you know what I mean? So I'm pretty happy with that, but then it was a case of going, right, well, what do I want to add to this? How do we want to make it into something? And I think when talking to guys like Hamish and different guys like that have been really successful in the kind of football realm of things, and then just kind of wanting to talk about it, because I think when I watch a game, I always go into different kind of football channels and listen to, like, you know, Up Goal and all stuff like that, and I just wanted to be like, there's so many thoughts I have on this that I want to talk about, and I think that there's not really, if you're interviewing somebody for the kind of things that we usually like to talk about, which is going to stay, like, that's the biggest point of all of it, ability, is that those kind of conversations. But there's no point to really be like, here, you know, that Celtic player was shite, or this game at the weekend was, did you see what happened in that Aberdeen Kilmarnock game? Like, nobody's going to be like, you know, so that's just something that I wanted to add to it, and we're going to do I think we're going to do a couple of match day vlogs, see how that goes, But the podcast every Tuesday will stay the same. We're just going to add more content from the football side of things, with videos and with vlogs and things like that. And if there's anything particular you want us to talk about or chat about, then give us a shout, because I want to just put out more content and be more consistent and talk about things I like talking about, which is the main thing, like football, and I'm sure wrestling will come into it at some point.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you see that? I always see that guy, that Rangers guy, one of the Rangers Twitter guys, get slagged off for like having an Undertaker tattoo or something like that. Like he had like it was, I think, one of their big sort of Twitter people, and he was pure loves wrestling. He has like Undertaker tattoo on his leg, and it I seen that it was like they just eat. So many Celtic fans give him so much shit for it, right? And I'm kind of like, I kind of watch it and I'm like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with the Undertaker, but do you know what I mean? Oh man, no, but it's football is everywhere, and I've been talking about how, like, to get publisher football stuff and that involved, you need to talk about, like, get more mainstream attention on it, and I just think that, like, actually being able to talk about football and show my sort of, I guess, passion for that will help the channel grow and things like that. But actually, I should mention this, mate. We're 50 subscribers off of 1,000, which is kind of a big
deal. Well, hopefully a Celtic post will get you there.
Exactly, mate.
We'll
Come
see
on,
what happens.
hail and all that. Get to 7. We're close to it, and I'm quite excited for what's to come. We have plans, so stay tuned. And yeah, hope you all enjoyed that wee chat there. Thanks, Paul, for
No bother, mate.
giving your wise words as
No bother.
usual. And the treble is on, Trips.